The crystal towers of Kythera colony gleamed like precious gems under the twin suns. Elder Scythia walked through the floating gardens where silver-leafed trees sang in the gentle breeze. The Vallani had built their home to be perfect. No weapons, no walls, no fear. For 300 years, peace had been their greatest achievement. Scythia paused near the communications center, her deer-like ears twitching at an unusual sound. The humming of the crystal towers had changed. Something was wrong. "Elder Scythia!" Young Keeper Thess ran toward her, his normally calm face twisted with panic. "Ships! Strange ships are coming through the outer system!" Through the transparent walls of the communications center, Scythia could see dark shapes moving between the stars. They were not the smooth, curved vessels of their trading partners. These ships looked angry, covered in sharp edges and weapon ports. "Have you tried to contact them?" Scythia asked, though her stomach already knew the answer. "Yes, Elder. They do not respond to our greetings. They only demand our surrender." The first explosions shook the ground. Scythia fell to her knees as the beautiful crystal spires began to crack. In the distance, she could see landing craft dropping from the sky like dark rain. The Skarn had come to Kythera. Within hours, the peaceful colony became a nightmare. The reptilian soldiers moved through the crystal streets with terrible efficiency. Their scales were dark green, almost black, and their eyes held no mercy. They carried weapons that could kill dozens with a single shot. The Vallani had never needed to run or hide. They did not know how. Families were separated as the Skarn herded them into groups. Children cried for their parents. Adults tried to shield the young with their own bodies. General Thax, the Skarn commander, stood in the main plaza where Scythia had given speeches about peace and wisdom. His voice was like grinding stone as he spoke to his soldiers. "These soft creatures will make good slaves. The young ones can work in the mines. The adults know their technology. They will teach us, or they will die slowly." Scythia found herself pushed into a group with other colony leaders. A Skarn soldier hit her with the back of his weapon when she tried to speak. Blood ran down her face, but she did not cry out. "You will come with us," Thax said to the leaders. "You will tell us where you hide your valuable things. You will give us your computer codes. You will make this easy, or we will make it very painful." As night fell over the broken crystal city, Scythia was dragged to a holding cell. But the Skarn had made one mistake. In their rush to capture the Vallani, they had not completely destroyed the communication center. Scythia crawled through the darkness toward the damaged building. Her body ached from the soldier's blow, but her mind was clear. She had to try. Someone in the galaxy had to know what was happening. The communication system was barely working. Most of the crystal relays were cracked, and the power was failing. Scythia had maybe one chance to send a message before the system died completely. She activated the emergency broadcast and spoke into the crackling transmitter. "This is Elder Scythia of Kythera Colony in the Kythera system. We are under attack by the Skarn military forces. We are a peaceful people. We have no weapons. We have no defenses. Our children are being taken from their parents. Our people are being enslaved. Please, if anyone receives this message, we are dying. We need help. Anyone who can hear this, please help us." The communication system sparked and went dark. Scythia collapsed next to the broken transmitter, not knowing if her message had reached anyone. 3 star systems away, the message was received by the Ethereal Consortium. The glowing beings in their floating cities discussed the situation for hours. They formed committees to study the problem. They debated the proper diplomatic response. They decided to send a strongly worded letter to the Skarn High Council. 5 systems further out, the Mechanical Collective's computer minds calculated the costs and benefits of intervention. The mathematical result was clear. Helping the Vallani would require resources that could be used more efficiently elsewhere. They filed the message away and returned to their manufacturing schedules. The Scion Dominion received the message as they meditated in their crystal pyramids. The telepathic beings felt the pain and fear of the Vallani across the light years. But their philosophy taught that suffering was part of the cosmic plan. They decided the Vallani's fate was already written in the stars. The message continued to travel through space, bouncing from relay to relay, growing weaker with each jump. Most civilizations either ignored it or decided it was not their problem. But 3 days later, the fading signal reached a small monitoring station on the edge of human space. Communications officer Sarah Chen was drinking coffee and reading reports when the emergency frequency activated. She almost choked when she heard Elder Scythia's desperate plea. Sarah had been in the Earth Defense Force for 8 years. She had heard distress calls before. But something about the old alien's voice, the way she said, "We are dying," made Sarah's hands shake as she forwarded the message to Earth Defense Command. On Earth, in the massive military complex buried beneath the Rocky Mountains, Admiral Marcus Reeves listened to the Villani plea 3 times. His weathered face showed no emotion, but his aide could see his hands gripping the desk until his knuckles turned white. Admiral Reeves was 70 years old. He had fought in the colony wars when human settlements were burning across 3 systems. He had seen what happened when good people did nothing while evil people acted. "Sir?" his aide asked quietly. "What are your orders?" Reeves looked at the photos on his wall. Pictures of human colonies that had been destroyed. Images of children who had died because help came too late. He thought about the Villani elder's voice, so much like his own grandmother who had died. On New Athens, when the raiders came, "Deploy the Retribution fleet," Reeves said, his voice cold as space. "Full battle configuration. Rules of engagement are total liberation of the Cathara system. Sir, the Skarn have a large military. This could mean war." The Skarn chose war when they attacked helpless civilians. Reeves stood and walked to the window, looking up at the stars. "Send a message to all fleet commanders. Tell them we have a code red humanitarian crisis. Tell them the Skarn forces will be given one chance to withdraw." "And if they refuse, sir?" Admiral Reeves turned back to his aide, and for a moment, the younger man saw something in the Admiral's eyes that made him step back. It was the look of someone who had survived on a death world, someone who had learned that sometimes the only way to save lives was to take them. "If they refuse," Reeves said quietly, "then we remind the galaxy why they call us Deathworlders." Within 12 hours, the largest human military force in decades was moving toward the Cathara system. 200 ships carrying 50,000 soldiers who had been born on Earth, the most dangerous planet in known space. The Villani had sent out a simple cry for help. They had no idea they were about to learn what happened when someone threatened the innocent while humanity was listening. Retribution fleet was coming, and the galaxy would never be the same. The flagship Indomitable Will was a monster of metal and weapons that stretched 5 kilometers from bow to stern. Admiral Reeves stood on the command bridge, watching as his fleet moved through folded space toward Cathara. Around him, 200 human warships traveled in perfect formation, their hulls scarred from battles fought across the galaxy. "Admiral," Captain Torres reported, "all ships are reporting ready status. Estimated arrival at Cathara in 42 hours. Reeves nodded, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. Each ship represented thousands of soldiers who had volunteered for this mission, men and women who had heard Elder Scythia's message and decided that innocent people should not suffer alone. On the assault carrier, Ragnar's Revenge, Captain Elena Vasquez walked through the troop compartments where her soldiers prepared for battle. She watched them clean their weapons with the same care they used to write letters to their families. This was the human way, to prepare for death while fighting for life. "Captain," Sergeant Maria Santos approached, her assault rifle all ready, loaded and ready. "The troops are asking about the enemy's strength." Elena had read the intelligence reports. The Skarn had 50 ships in the Cathara system with advanced shields and powerful weapons. By the numbers, it would be a difficult fight. "Tell them what they need to know, Sergeant. The Skarn are strong, but they've made one mistake." "What's that, ma'am?" Elena smiled, but it was not a kind expression. "They hurt people who couldn't fight back. Now they get to see what happens when they fight people who can." Meanwhile, on Cathara, the nightmare continued. General Thax had turned the Crystal City into a processing center for slaves. Villani families were separated into different camps. Children were sent to one area, adults to another. The elderly and sick were simply left to die. Elder Scythia was chained in a holding cell with other colony leaders. The Skarn interrogators came every day, demanding information about hidden technology and valuable resources. When the Villani refused to speak, the torture began. "You will tell us where you hide your quantum computers," Thax hissed at Scythia, his reptilian face close to hers. "Or we will start killing your younglings." Scythia's face was swollen from beatings, but her voice was steady. "We have told you everything. We are not warriors. We are not hiding weapons or treasure. We are just people who wanted to live in peace." Thax struck her again. "Peace is for the weak. The strong take what they want. Your people will learn to serve, or they will die." But even as he spoke, Thax felt uneasy. 3 days ago, his scouts had detected strange energy signatures at the edge of the system. His communications officers reported unusual activity on the hyperspace channels. Something was coming. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the system's edge in perfect silence. Admiral Reeves had ordered complete radio silence as they approached. The Skarn would know they were coming soon enough. "Admiral," the sensor officer reported, 53 Skarn vessels in the system. Most are concentrated around the planet. They have orbital weapons platforms and defensive satellites. Captain Vasquez reports her assault troops are ready for planetary insertion," Torres added. "Marine landing craft are loaded and standing by." Reeves studied the tactical display. The Skarn had positioned their ships well, using the planet's gravity to anchor their defense. They were prepared for a traditional battle between fleets. They were not prepared for how humans fought war. "Open a channel to the Skarn commander," Reeves ordered. General Thax was in his command ship above Kithara when the communication request came. His intelligence officers had detected the human fleet an hour ago. 50 ships against his 53, with his forces in defensive positions. The odds favored him. "This is General Thax of the Skarn hegemony," he spoke into the communicator. "State your business in Skarn space." Admiral Reeves's voice came through cold and clear. "This is Admiral Marcus Reeves of the Terran Defense Force. You have unlawfully attacked the Villani colony of Kithara. You have enslaved peaceful civilians and committed acts of torture against non-combatants. You will immediately withdraw all forces from this system and release all prisoners." Thax laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Deathworlders making demands? Your reputation is greatly exaggerated, mammal. We claim Kithara by right of conquest. If you wish to challenge us, you are welcome to try." There was a long pause before Admiral Reeves responded. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter, more dangerous. "General Thax, you have enslaved children. You have tortured elderly civilians. You have destroyed a peaceful colony for profit." Another pause. "You were warned. The communication ended, and for a moment, space around Kithara seemed perfectly still. Then the human fleet attacked, but it was not the attack Thax expected. Instead of ship-to-ship combat, the humans used tactics that made his military education seem primitive. Swarms of small fighter craft moved like angry insects, too fast for the Skarn targeting systems. Electronic warfare packages blinded his sensors and jammed his communications. Kinetic bombardment weapons fired chunks of metal at such high speed that they turned Skarn ships into expanding clouds of debris. "What are they doing?" Thax shouted at his tactical officer. "This is not how civilized species fight wars." "Sir, they're not fighting like a civilized species," the officer replied, fear creeping into his voice. "They're fighting like predators." The human ships moved with deadly coordination. While the Skarn tried to maintain formation and fight, honorably, the humans struck from all directions at once. They targeted engines first, leaving Skarn ships helpless. Then they systematically destroyed weapons and life support. Captain Vasquez watched from her bridge as human Marines prepared for planetary assault. "Sergeant Santos, are your teams ready?" "Ready and angry, Captain. The orbital bombardment has cleared most of their ground defenses. We'll have boots on the ground in 20 minutes. Remember the mission, Sergeant. Primary objective is civilian rescue. Secondary is neutralizing all Skarn military personnel." "What about prisoners, ma'am?" Elena's face was hard as stone. "Anyone who surrenders gets to live. Anyone who threatens civilians gets to find out why Earth is called a death world." The drop pods screamed through Kithara's atmosphere like falling meteors. Each pod carried a squad of human Marines trained on Earth, where everything from the weather to the wildlife tried to kill you every day. They had learned to be the most dangerous thing on any planet they visited. Elder Scythia heard the explosions and saw the flashes of light through her cell window. At first, she thought the Skarn were destroying more of the city. Then she heard something that made her hearts race with hope. Human voices, speaking in their quick, efficient language. The sound of energy weapons cutting through Skarn armor. The heavy footsteps of soldiers moving with purpose. Elder. Young Keeper Thess, pressed against the cell bars. Something is happening! The Skarn guards are running! The cell door exploded inward, and a figure in black combat armor stepped through the smoke. The human soldier was massive, covered in weapons and protective gear that made them look like a mechanical death god. But when they spoke, the voice was gentle. "Ma'am, are you Elder Scythia? We're here to get you out." Scythia looked up at her rescuer through swollen eyes. "You came," she whispered. "Someone heard our message." The human soldier helped her to her feet with surprising gentleness. "Yes, ma'am. And we brought friends." Through the broken walls of her prison, Scythia could see human soldiers moving through the city with deadly efficiency. They moved in small teams, each covering the others, advancing with the fluid motion of pack hunters. When they found Skarn guards, the fighting was brief and brutal. When they found Villani civilians, their movements became careful and protective. General Thax realized he was losing when his flagship's shields failed under human bombardment. Half his fleet was destroyed or disabled. His ground forces were being systematically eliminated by human marines who fought like demons. "Sir, incoming transmission from the human admiral," his communications officer reported. "This is Admiral Reeves." The human voice was still calm, still polite. "General Thax, you have lost. Your fleet is broken, your ground forces are defeated. I am offering you one final chance. Surrender now, and you will be treated according to galactic law." Thax's pride would not allow surrender. "Never! We are Skarn. We do not surrender to inferior species." "Then you have chosen your fate," Admiral Reeves replied. "All units, weapons free. No mercy for those who harm the innocent." The remaining Skarn ships died in the next 10 minutes. Their weapons, designed for conquering helpless prey, could not match the fury of soldiers who had learned war on the most dangerous planet in known space. As the last Skarn ship exploded into debris, Elder Scythia stood in the ruins of her city, surrounded by human marines. The crystal towers were broken, the floating gardens burned, but her people were free. She looked up at the human soldier who had rescued her. "Why?" she asked. "Why did you come so far to help strangers?" The human removed their helmet, revealing the face of a young woman with kind eyes and hard features. "Because, Elder, where I come from, we learned that the strong protect the weak. It's what separates us from the monsters." In the distance, Scythia could see more human ships arriving, medical vessels to treat the wounded. The battle for Kithara was over in 18 hours. What had taken the Skarn days to conquer, the humans liberated in less than a day. But Admiral Reeves was not satisfied with just freeing the Villani. He stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, Will, watching his fleet regroup in orbit, and made a decision that would change the galaxy forever. "Admiral," Captain Torres approached with a tactical report, "all Skarn ground forces have been eliminated or captured. We've rescued over 2 million Villani civilians. Medical teams are treating the wounded." "What about the Skarn fleet?" "Completely destroyed, sir. No survivors from the ships that refused to surrender. The few that did surrender are being held according to military law." Reeves nodded, but his expression remained hard. "And the Skarn forces that escaped before the battle?" Torres consulted his datapad. "Intelligence reports at least 12 Skarn ships jumped to hyperspace before we arrived. They're likely returning to their forward base in the Zerion system." Then, "Our job isn't finished." Reeves turned to address the bridge crew. "The Skarn didn't attack Kithara because they were hungry or desperate. They attacked because they thought they could get away with it. If we let them escape to try again somewhere else, we've failed." In the ruins of Kithara's crystal city, Elder Scythia was brought aboard the human medical ship Mercy of Earth. The human doctors worked with efficient compassion, treating her injuries while asking gentle questions about her people's needs. Dr. Sarah Kim, the chief medical officer, checked Scythia's vital signs with instruments that seemed almost magical. "Your injuries are healing well, Elder. The bruising will fade in a few days." "Doctor?" Scythia asked. Your people fought with such intensity. Are all humans like this? Dr. Kim smiled, but there was sadness in her eyes. We come from a world that tried to kill us, Elder. We learned to be strong because we had to be. But we also learned to value life because we know how fragile it is. Will you stay to help us rebuild? Some of us will. But Admiral Reeves has decided to pursue the Skarn forces that escaped. He says that evil people who hurt innocent ones must face consequences, or they will just hurt more innocents. Scythia thought about this. The Vellani way would be to forgive, to try to understand why the Skarn had done such terrible things. But she remembered her people screaming as families were torn apart, children crying for their missing parents. Perhaps, she said quietly, there is wisdom in the human way. The human fleet left Kithara 3 days later, leaving behind medical teams, engineers to help rebuild, and a small defense force. But the main battle group followed the hyperspace trail of the escaped Skarn ships toward the Zerion system. Captain Elena Vasquez stood in her ready room aboard the Ragnar's Revenge, reading reports from the Kithara operation. Her Marines had performed perfectly, rescuing civilians while eliminating enemy forces with surgical precision. But the reports also contained disturbing intelligence about Skarn operations across the sector. Sergeant Maria Santos knocked and entered. Captain, you wanted to see me? Sit down, Sergeant. I've been reading your interrogation reports from the Skarn prisoners. Tell me about what you learned. Santos's face was grim. It's worse than we thought, ma'am. Kithara wasn't their first target. They've been operating across this entire sector for months. 12 other colonies have been hit. Millions of beings enslaved. What kinds of colonies? All peaceful species. The gentle folk of Harmonia, the crystal singers from Melodia Prime, the tree shepherds of Verdant. All species like the Vellani, artistic, philosophical, completely nonviolent. Elena felt her anger rising. The Skarn were not just random raiders. They were systematic predators who specifically targeted those who could not fight back. Sergeant, what happened to the other colonies? Unknown, ma'am. The Skarn prisoners claim they were all processed for maximum efficiency. I think we can guess what that means. Elena stared out the viewport at the stars. Somewhere out there, other innocent species might be suffering, while the galaxy's civilized. Powers debated proper diplomatic responses. Thank you, Sergeant. Dismissed. When Santos left, Elena activated her communication console and sent a message to Admiral Reeves. The Zerion system operation would not be just about stopping the Skarn. It would be about sending a message to every predator species in the galaxy. The human fleet arrived at the Zerion system to find a massive Skarn military base built around a captured asteroid. The base was surrounded by defense platforms and patrol ships. But what made the humans truly angry were the slave transport ships docked at the station. Admiral, the sensor officer reported, I'm detecting life signs from 17 different species aboard those transport ships. Thousands of them. Admiral Reeves studied the tactical display. The Skarn had turned Zerion into a processing center for their slave trade. Innocent beings from across the sector were being held in cargo bays like livestock. Open a channel to the Skarn base, Reeves ordered. The response came from General Vask, the Skarn regional commander. Human fleet, you are in violation of Skarn territorial space. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. General Vask, Admiral Reeves replied, you are holding thousands of innocent beings as slaves. You will release them immediately and surrender your forces. Vask's laugh was like breaking glass. The same demands you made to poor General Thax? We know what happened at Kithara, human. But here you face a real Skarn military force, not a small occupation garrison. General, you have attacked peaceful colonies across this sector. You have enslaved millions of innocent beings. You have committed crimes against every civilized law in the galaxy. And what will you do about it, Deathworlder? Your 50 ships against our fleet and orbital defenses? You are outnumbered 3-1. Admiral Reeves was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was filled with the cold certainty of someone who had already decided to kill. General Vask, I want you to understand something. We didn't come here to have a fair fight. We came here to end your operations permanently. You have exactly 60 seconds to begin releasing your prisoners, or we will demonstrate why civilized species fear Deathworlders. The 60 seconds passed in silence. Then the human fleet struck with coordinated precision that made their attack at Cathara look restrained. Wave after wave of human fighters swarmed the Skarn defense platforms like angry insects. Electronic warfare packages disabled the enemy's targeting systems. And in the middle of the chaos, human special forces ships moved like ghosts toward the slave transports. Captain Vasquez led the assault on the main transport ship. Her marines moved through the corridors with deadly efficiency, eliminating Skarn guards while being careful not to harm the prisoners. Sergeant Santos, report, Elena called over the combat network. We've reached the main holding areas, Captain. Dear God, they're packed in here like cargo. Hundreds of different species, all chained together. Many are children. Elena's voice was tight with controlled rage. Secure all the prisoners, Sergeant. I want every Skarn guard in this section eliminated. No prisoners, no mercy. Copy that, ma'am. With pleasure. The battle raged for 6 hours, but the outcome was never in doubt. The Skarn had superior numbers, but the humans fought with the fury of a species that had learned war on a death world. Every human soldier carried the memory of Elder Scythia's voice pleading for help, the image of Vallani children crying for their parents. General Vask realized he was losing when his flagship's engines were destroyed by human torpedoes. His communications were jammed, his weapons disabled, his fleet scattered and burning. Sir, his tactical officer reported, human boarding parties have taken control of all the transport ships. They're evacuating the prisoners. What about our ground installations? Gone, sir. The humans didn't just attack them, they erased them. Our main processing facility is a crater visible from orbit. Vask felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. The humans weren't just defeating his forces. They were systematically destroying everything connected to the Skarn slave trade. A final communication came from Admiral Reeves. General Vask, your fleet is broken, your base is destroyed, and all your prisoners have been freed. You have lost. Surrender now, and you will be treated according to the laws of war. Vask's pride warred with his survival instinct. Around him, his ship was dying. His crew was dead or wounded, and the human fleet surrounded him like metal vultures. I surrender, he said, the words bitter on his reptilian tongue. Acknowledged, General. You will be taken into custody and tried for crimes against galactic law. But as Vask was taken prisoner, he heard something that chilled his blood. Admiral Reeves was issuing new orders to his fleet. All units, prepare to move to the next target. Intelligence reports Skarn slave operations in the Mordash system. We will continue operations until every Skarn slaver in this sector is eliminated. The human fleet had not come just to rescue the Vallani. They had come to end the Skarn slave trade forever, and they would not stop until every innocent being in Skarn custody was free. As the transport ships filled with rescued prisoners jumped to safety, Admiral Reeves stood on his bridge and looked at the tactical display showing Skarn operations. Across the sector, 12 more systems, millions more slaves, dozens more species that needed liberation. 3 weeks after the liberation of Cathara, the human fleet had become legend across the galaxy. They moved through space like a storm of justice, appearing wherever the Skarn held innocent beings as slaves. System after system fell to their advance, and with each victory, their reputation grew darker in the eyes of those who preyed on the weak. Admiral Reeves stood in his quarters aboard the Indomitable Will, studying reports from their latest operation. The Mordash system had been liberated 2 days ago, freeing another 1 million slaves from 12 different species. But intelligence gathered from captured Skarn computers revealed the true scope of their enemy's operations. Admiral, Captain, Torres entered with a priority communication. We've received a message from the Skarn High Council on their homeworld. Reeves looked up from his reports. What do they want? They're requesting a ceasefire, sir. They want to negotiate terms for ending hostilities. After they've enslaved millions of innocent beings, now they want to talk. Reeves's voice was cold as deep space. What are our current forces? Operational fleet strength is down to 160 ships, sir. We've been fighting continuously for 3 weeks. The crew is exhausted, and we're running low on some supplies. Reeves nodded. The human fleet had won every battle, but war always had a cost. His ships showed scars from Skarn weapons, and too many good soldiers had died freeing strangers they would never meet. Sir, Torres continued, Earth Command is requesting a status report. They want to know when we'll be returning home. Tell Earth Command we'll return when our mission is complete. Reeves activated his communication console. Get me Captain Vasquez. Elena appeared on the screen from her quarters aboard the Ragnar's Revenge. Behind her, Reeves could see the drawings that Villani children had made for her. Pictures of human soldiers as guardian angels. Admiral, Elena said, I've been reviewing the intelligence from Mordash. The Skarn have been operating across this entire sector for over 2 years. Conservative estimates put their slave population at over 50 million beings. 50 million, Reeves repeated quietly. And the galaxy's civilized powers knew about this? Yes, sir. We found diplomatic messages in the Skarn computers. The Ethereal Consortium filed formal complaints. The Mechanical Collective sent strongly worded economic sanctions. The Scion Dominion meditated on the cosmic injustice of it all, while the Skarn kept enslaving innocent people. Yes, sir. And, sir, there's something else. We've identified the location of the Skarn's main slave processing center. It's in orbit around their homeworld. Reeves felt his anger settle into the cold determination that had carried him through 30 years of military service. How many prisoners? Unknown, sir. But the facility is massive. It could hold millions. Captain, prepare your assault forces. We're going to end this permanently. 2 days later, the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Skarn home system. What they found there shocked even the battle-hardened veterans of humanity's expansion wars. The massive slave processing station orbited the Skarn homeworld like a metallic moon. It was 10 kilometers long and 5 kilometers wide, big enough to hold entire populations. Around it, Skarn defense fleets patrolled in careful formations, nearly 500 ships protecting their most valuable asset. Admiral, the censor officer reported, I'm detecting life signs from over 300 different species aboard that station. The number is... It's hard to believe. Give me your best estimate. Sir, there could be as many as 20 million beings aboard that facility. The bridge fell silent. 20 million slaves from 300 species, representing every peaceful civilization the Skarn had encountered in their expansion across the sector. Admiral, Captain Torres said quietly, the Skarn High Council is transmitting. The face that appeared on the main screen belonged to High Counselor Drath, the supreme leader of the Skarn hegemony. His scales were deep black with silver markings that indicated his ancient age and high rank. Admiral Reeves, Drath spoke with the arrogance of someone who had never faced serious opposition. You have violated Skarn space and destroyed our military assets. But you are now in the heart of our empire, surrounded by our full fleet. Surely even Deathworlders can see reason. High Counselor Drath, Admiral Reeves replied, you are holding 20 million innocent beings as slaves. You will release them immediately and surrender all forces involved in the slave trade. Drath's laugh was like the sound of breaking bones. Surrender to 50 human ships. Admiral, you are surrounded by 500 vessels of the Skarn Imperial fleet. Your little crusade ends here. Counselor, you have enslaved children from 300 different species. You have built your empire on the suffering of innocence. You have created concentration camps in space. Admiral Reeves paused, his voice growing quieter and more dangerous. You were warned. Warned about what, human? You are outnumbered 10 to 1. We were not warning you about our numbers, Counselor. We were warning you about what happens when someone hurts innocent people while humanity is watching. The communication ended, and Admiral Reeves turned to his tactical officer. Signal, all ships. Operation Righteous Fury is authorized. Rules of engagement. Any Skarn ship that threatens the slave station or civilian evacuation vessels is to be destroyed immediately. What followed was not a battle between fleets. It was a demonstration of why evolution on a death world creates the most efficient killers in the galaxy. The human ships moved like a pack of predators, using tactics that the Skarn military academies had never taught. They struck from multiple directions at once, their weapons targeting engines and life support systems to disable rather than destroy when possible. But when Skarn ships threatened the slave station or tried to use prisoners as human shields, the human response was swift and absolute. Captain Vasquez led the assault on the slave station itself. Her Marines moved through the massive facility like avenging angels, their weapons cutting through scarred guards while their medics tended to rescued prisoners. "Sergeant Santos, what's your status?" Elena called over the combat network. "We've secured sections 1 through 15, Captain. The conditions here they're worse than anything we found at the other sites. Some of these beings have been imprisoned for years." Elena moved through a corridor lined with holding cells, each one packed with prisoners from different species. The gentle folk of Harmonia huddled together, their normally bright colors faded to gray from despair. Crystal singers from Melodia Prime sat in silence, their voices stolen by trauma. Children from dozens of worlds cried for parents they might never see again. "Santos, how many guards have we encountered?" "About 300 eliminated so far, Captain. Most of them fought to the end. A few surrendered when they saw what happened to their friends." Elena paused at a cell holding Villani civilians, survivors from other colonies that had been attacked before Kithara. An elderly female looked up at her with eyes that held no hope. "You are real?" the Villani whispered. "We heard rumors that the Deathworlders had come to save us, but we thought it was just stories to help us survive." Elena knelt beside the bars, her voice gentle despite the battle raging around them. "We're real. We're here. And we're taking you home." The battle for the Scarn home system raged for 12 hours. Despite being outnumbered, the human fleet methodically destroyed or disabled the Scarn defense force. Their ships were faster, their weapons more precise, and their tactics more deadly than anything the Scarn had ever faced. High Counselor Drakth watched from his command ship as his empire's greatest military force was systematically dismantled. These humans fought with a combination of advanced technology and primitive savagery that terrified him. They showed no mercy to those who harmed civilians, but took prisoners when enemies surrendered. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, 80% of our fleet is destroyed or disabled. The humans have secured the slave station and are evacuating all prisoners." "What about our planetary defenses?" "The humans haven't attacked the planet, sir. They've only targeted military vessels and the slave facility." Drakth realized something that chilled his reptilian blood. The humans could have destroyed his homeworld with orbital bombardment. They had the firepower to crack planets. But they had focused their attacks solely on military targets and the slave station. These Deathworlders were not conquerors. They were liberators. A final communication came from Admiral Reeves. "High Counselor Drakth, your slave operation is ended. 20 million innocent beings are now free. Your military fleet is destroyed. You have lost." What are your terms?" Drakth asked, his voice hollow with defeat. "Simple. The Scarn hegemony will immediately release any remaining slaves in your territory. You will provide reparations to the species you have harmed. You will submit to galactic monitoring to ensure you never resume slave operations, and any Scarn caught engaging in slavery will be hunted down and eliminated. And if we refuse?" Admiral Reeves's response was delivered with the calm certainty of someone who held all the weapons. "Then we will return with a larger fleet and solve the problem permanently." As the human fleet prepared to leave the Scarn home system, they left behind a changed civilization. 6 months after the liberation of the Scarn sector, the galaxy was a different place. The news of humanity's intervention had spread to every corner of known space, carried by the freed slaves who returned to their homeworlds with stories of the Deathworlders who had saved them. Elder Scythia stood in the rebuilt Crystal Plaza of Kithara Colony, addressing a gathering of representatives from over 200 species. The new towers rose even higher than before, but now they incorporated human defensive technology hidden within their beautiful structure. Never again would Kithara be helpless. "Friends," Scythia spoke to the assembled delegates, "we gather today to mark the establishment of the Galactic Protection Alliance. For too long, the peaceful peoples of this galaxy have suffered while the powerful debated proper procedures. Today, that changes." In the audience, representatives from the gentle folk, the crystal singers, the tree shepherds, and dozens of other species nodded their agreement. They had all suffered under various predator civilizations, and they had all been saved by humanity's intervention. "But this alliance is not just for protection," Scythia continued. "We offer our knowledge, our art, our wisdom freely to those who defend the innocent. We may not have weapons, but we have much to give. Admiral Reeves sat in the front row, still wearing his military uniform despite being on what Earth Command called a diplomatic mission. Beside him sat Captain Vasquez, Sergeant Santos, and other veterans of the Scarn campaign. They had been invited as honored guests, but Reeves suspected they were really here to discuss the future. After the ceremony, Scythia approached the human delegation. "Admiral, walk with me. There are things we must discuss privately." They moved through the crystal gardens where silver-leafed trees sang in the gentle breeze. But now, hidden among the beautiful structures, Reeves could see the discreet placement of defense sensors and shield generators. The Villani had learned from their suffering. "Admiral," Scythia said, "I have received communications from across the galaxy. The Ethereal Consortium has suddenly discovered the efficiency of rapid response protocols. The Mechanical Collective has calculated that humanitarian assistance provides excellent long-term stability. Even the Scion Dominion claims they always intended to help protect the innocent." Reeves smiled grimly. "Amazing how quickly civilized species can change their policies when someone else does the hard work." Indeed. But there are also darker messages. Species that profited from the chaos caused by predators like the Scarn are not pleased with the new order. They speak of humanity as dangerous, uncontrolled, a threat to galactic stability. "What do you think, Elder?" Scythia paused beside a memorial wall where the names of those lost to the Scarn were written in flowing crystal script. "I think, Admiral, that evil people always call good people dangerous when they start fighting back." That evening, Admiral Reeves attended a private meeting with the human diplomatic team that had arrived from Earth. Ambassador Sarah Chen, the same communications officer who had first received Elder Scythia's distress call, now served as humanity's representative to the galactic community. "Admiral," Ambassador Chen said, "Earth Command wants a full assessment of our new position in galactic politics." "It's simple, Ambassador. We've become the galaxy's unofficial police force. Every time someone attacks a peaceful species, they expect us to show up and fix the problem. And the other major powers? Nervous. The consortium is trying to create their own rapid response force to compete with us. The collective is building new military models. The Dominion claims they're meditating on the cosmic implications of Deathworlder intervention." Ambassador Chen reviewed her notes. "What about hostile reactions?" Captain Vasquez spoke up from across the table. "3 minor empires have started, building defensive alliances against human aggression. The Zephyrian Trade Federation has banned human ships from their space, and we've detected increased military buildups in several sectors. They're afraid," Admiral Reeves said simply. "They've spent centuries believing that might makes right, that the strong naturally dominate the weak. We've proven that philosophy wrong, and they don't know how to respond." Ambassador Chen nodded. "And our response to their fear? The same as it's always been. We protect the innocent. We punish those who prey on the helpless, and we let the galaxy decide if they want to be part of the solution or part of the problem." Meanwhile, in a secure facility on Earth, the Global Defense Council was meeting to discuss humanity's new role in galactic affairs. Fleet Admiral Morrison, Reeves' superior, presented the strategic situation to world leaders. "Ladies and gentlemen, in 6 months we've gone from a mid-level galactic power to the de facto protectors of over 300 species. The Scarn Sector Liberation freed 50 million slaves and ended the largest criminal operation in known space." President Martinez of the Earth Federation leaned forward. "What are the costs, Admiral?" "Significant but manageable. We've lost 37 ships and 8,000 personnel in various operations since Cathara. But we've also gained something invaluable: the willing alliance of every peaceful species in the galaxy. And the threats? Growing. Intelligence indicates at least 12 hostile powers are forming coalitions against us. They call it maintaining galactic stability. But we know it's about preserving their ability to exploit weaker species, the sea. Chinese representatives spoke up. "Are we prepared for a galaxy-wide conflict?" Admiral Morrison displayed a holographic map showing human fleet deployments. "We're establishing permanent humanitarian response fleets in 5 major sectors. Each fleet is capable of responding to crises within 72 hours. We're also working with our new allies to create early warning networks." "But if they all unite against us?" the Russian delegate asked. "Then we remind them why Earth is classified as a death world," Morrison replied grimly. Back on Cathara, Admiral Reeves received an urgent communication from his fleet's intelligence division. The message made him call an immediate meeting with his senior staff. "We've intercepted communications between the hegemony remnants and several other aggressive species," Intelligence Officer Commander Park reported. "They're planning something called the Great Restoration, an operation to reverse what they call the Deathworlder disruption of natural galactic order." "How many species are involved?" Captain Vasquez asked. "At least 20, possibly more. The Zephyrian Trade Federation, the Carnivore Guild, the Dominion of Scales, all species that profited from chaos and exploitation." Sergeant Santos, now promoted to lieutenant, studied the intelligence data. "Ma'am, this looks like they're planning to hit multiple peaceful colonies simultaneously. Force us to spread our fleets too thin to respond effectively." Admiral Reeves looked at the tactical projections. The enemy alliance was large and well-coordinated. They had learned from the Skarn's mistakes and were planning to fight smart instead of honorably. "Recommendations?" he asked his staff. "We need more ships," Vasquez said immediately. "And we need them positioned to respond faster than our enemies can move." "We also need to consider preemptive action," Commander Park added. "If we know they're planning to attack peaceful colonies, we have a moral obligation to stop them." "Admiral." Reeves was quiet for a long moment, thinking about Elder Scythia's words about good people being called dangerous when they fight back. Then he activated his communication console. "Get me Earth Command, Priority Alpha." When Fleet Admiral Morrison appeared on the screen, Reeves didn't waste time with pleasantries. "Sir, we have credible intelligence of a coordinated attack being planned against peaceful species across the galaxy. Request immediate authorization for Operation Galactic Shield." "Details, Admiral. Full deployment of all human fleets to protective positions around peaceful worlds. Preemptive strikes against any force that threatens civilian populations. And, sir, we make it clear that this is not negotiable." Morrison was quiet for a moment. "Admiral, that's essentially declaring ourselves the galactic government." "No, sir. We're declaring ourselves the galaxy's protectors. There's a difference. And if the other powers unite against us..." Admiral Reeves thought about the Villani children drawing pictures of human soldiers as guardian angels. He thought about the millions of freed slaves who now lived in safety because humanity had refused to look the other way. "Then we remind them, sir, that we come from a death world. We survived when everything on our planet tried to kill us. We learned to be stronger, faster, and more determined than anything else in the galaxy. And most importantly, we learned that the strong have an obligation to protect the weak, even if it means war with half the galaxy." "Especially then, sir." Fleet Admiral Morrison nodded slowly. "Authorization granted, Admiral. Operation Galactic Shield is approved. Show them what Deathworlders can do when innocent lives are threatened." As Admiral Reeves ended the communication, he looked out at the crystal towers of Cathara Colony glowing in the light of twin suns. Elder Scythia's simple distress call had changed everything. Humanity had answered one cry for help and discovered their true purpose in the galaxy. They were not conquerors or explorers or traders. They were protectors. They were the species that other species called when the monsters came in the night.